The morning sun rose over New Haven Colony like any other day. The small settlement on Kepler 442c had been home to 3,000 humans for nearly 5 years now. They worked the mines, raised their families, and lived peacefully alongside the various alien traders who passed through their world. Emma Sullivan was 8 years old, with brown hair tied in 2 ponytails and a smile that could light up a room. She loved living on the frontier. Every day felt like an adventure. Her father, Jake Sullivan, worked as a supervisor in the mining operations, while her mother, Linda Sullivan, maintained the environmental systems that kept the colony alive. That morning, Emma skipped along the path to her school complex. She carried a data pad with her homework and a lunch her mother had packed. The sky was purple here, not blue like Earth's sky in the pictures she had seen. She liked the purple better. Stay close to the buildings, her mother had reminded her at breakfast. And come straight home after school, Emma had promised. She always kept her promises. The school complex sat near the edge of the colony, a cluster of white buildings surrounded by a protective barrier. 32 human children attended classes there, learning math, science, history, and the languages of the alien species they might encounter in their lives. At mid-morning, the alarms began to sound. Emma looked up from her reading tablet, confused. The teacher, Mrs. Patterson, stood quickly and moved to the window. Her face went pale. Children, everyone to the shelter. Now, quickly and quietly. But Emma had left her favorite toy in her locker outside. It was a small stuffed bear from Earth, the only thing she had from the home planet she had never seen. Without thinking, she slipped away from the line of students heading underground. The locker was just outside, only 20 steps away. She could grab it and catch up. She pushed open the door and ran outside. That was when she saw them. Ships filled the sky, not the trading vessels that came peacefully. These were warships, dark and angular, with weapons that glowed red. They belonged to the Crithian Empire, a powerful alien race that controlled 17 star systems. The Crithians stood nearly 8 feet tall, with gray-scaled skin and 4 arms. They were warriors, conquerors, and they viewed most other species as beneath them. Humans were particularly insignificant in their eyes, a young race with only a handful of colonies, barely worth noticing. The raiding party had come for the valuable minerals in New Haven's mines. They had not expected resistance. They had not expected humans to fight back. But Commander Kyle Brooks, the colony's security chief, had other ideas. His small force of 30 security officers engaged the raiders immediately, buying time for civilians to reach the shelters. Emma stood frozen in the courtyard, watching the ships descend. Explosions rocked the colony as Crithian warriors opened fire on the buildings. She saw Commander Brooks and his team firing back from behind barricades. "Emma!" someone screamed. It was her father, Jake, running toward her from the mining facility. "Emma, get down!" She turned toward his voice. Her foot caught on a piece of debris. She stumbled, falling to her knees. The Crithian warrior saw her then. Zrixtal, the warlord leading the raid, stood atop a landing craft. He saw the small human child in the courtyard. His eyes, cold and reptilian, assessed her. In his mind, she was nothing. Collateral damage. An insect beneath his notice. He raised his weapon. "No!" Jake screamed, still 50 meters away. Zrixtal fired. The energy blast struck Emma in the chest and shoulder. The force threw her small body backward. She hit the ground and did not move. Jake reached her seconds later, dropping to his knees beside his daughter. Her eyes were open but unfocused. Blood spread across her shirt. Burns marked her skin where the energy weapon had hit her. "Emma, baby, stay with me," Jake sobbed. His hands shook as he tried to stop the bleeding. "Linda, medic! Someone help!" Linda Sullivan arrived moments later, her face a mask of horror. She fell beside her husband and daughter, pressing her hands against the wounds. Emma's breathing was shallow. Her skin had gone pale. Commander Brooks fought his way to them, providing covering fire. "Get her to the medical center, go!" Jake lifted his daughter's limp body and ran. Linda ran beside him, keeping pressure on the wounds. Around them, the battle continued. Crithian warriors moved through the colony, taking what they wanted and destroying what they did not. The medical center had barely been prepared for this. Dr. Nathan Price was a civilian doctor, trained for mining accidents and common illnesses. He had 2 nurses and limited equipment. When Jake burst through the doors carrying Emma, the doctor's face went grim. "Put her on the table now." For the next 6 hours, Dr. Price fought to save Emma's life. He repaired damaged organs, sealed burns, and stabilized her broken body. But the damage was severe. When he finally emerged from surgery, his scrub stained with blood, he found Jake and Linda waiting. "She's alive," he said quietly, "but she's in a coma. The trauma to her body was extensive. I don't know when or if she'll wake up." Linda collapsed into Jake's arms. Her sobs echoed through the empty hallway. Commander Brooks stood nearby, his jaw clenched. In his hand was a data chip. The colony's security cameras had recorded everything. Every moment of the attack. Every second of Emma being shot down. "I'm sending this to Earth," Brooks said. "They need to see what happened here." Jake looked up, his eyes red but hard. "Send it everywhere. Every colony. Every ship. Every human in the galaxy needs to see what they did to our little girl." Brooks nodded. He uploaded the footage immediately. The transmission reached Earth in 3 days. From there, it spread like wildfire through human space. Within a week, every human in the galaxy had seen the footage. An 8-year-old girl running for safety. A Crithian warlord deliberately firing upon her, her small body thrown backward by the blast. The footage lasted only 12 seconds. Those 12 seconds changed everything. On Earth, people watched in silence. On Mars, colonists wept openly. On the space stations orbiting Jupiter, workers stopped their tasks and stared at the screens. Humanity had been peaceful. Humanity had been friendly. Humanity had been content to mine their worlds, raise their families, and trade with the galaxy. But humanity had children. And someone had harmed one of their children. The anger that swept through human space was like nothing the galaxy had ever seen. It was not the rage of governments or military leaders. It was the fury of mothers and fathers, brothers and sisters of every human who saw Emma fall and recognized her as their own. The Crithian Empire had made a terrible mistake. They had awoken something in humanity that had been sleeping, something primal and fierce, something that would not rest until justice was served. In her hospital bed on New Haven, Emma Sullivan lay unconscious, unaware that she had become the spark that would ignite a war. Her parents sat beside her, holding her hands, whispering prayers and promises. Outside, the stars shone coldly in the purple sky. And somewhere in those stars, humanity was gathering its strength. The video reached Earth on a Tuesday afternoon. Within 1 hour, it had been viewed 3 billion times. Within 6 hours, every human on the planet had seen it. Within 12 hours, every human in the solar system knew what had happened on New Haven. President Michelle Carter sat in her office in Geneva, watching the footage for the 7th time. Each viewing made her anger burn hotter. She was 53 years old, a former military officer turned diplomat turned leader. She had negotiated peace treaties with 6 alien species. She had built trade relationships across the galaxy. She had always chosen words over weapons, but as she watched Emma Sullivan fall, something inside her hardened. Her chief of staff entered quietly. "Madam President, the calls are coming in. Every governor, every colony administrator, every military commander. The people are demanding action." "What kind of action?" Carter asked, though she already knew. "War, ma'am. They want war." Carter closed her eyes. She had hoped humanity would never have to show the galaxy what they were truly capable of. She had hoped they could remain the peaceful traders, the friendly explorers, the species that preferred building to destroying. That hope died with Emma's fall. "Convene the United Terran Assembly," Carter said. "Emergency session. 1 hour." The assembly chamber filled quickly. Representatives from every human colony, every space station, every outpost attended either in person or by hologram. The room buzzed with angry voices. Carter had never seen such unity. Democrats and Republicans, Earthers and Spacers, old guard and young blood, they all wore the same expression of controlled fury. Carter stood at the podium. The room fell silent. "You have all seen the footage from New Haven," she began. Her voice was steady, but those who knew her could hear the rage beneath. An 8-year-old girl was deliberately shot by a Crithian warlord during an unprovoked raid on a peaceful colony. Emma Sullivan now lies in a coma. Doctors do not know if she will ever wake. The room erupted in shouts. Carter waited for silence. The Crithian Empire has made no apology. They have offered no explanation. They have sent no representatives to answer for this crime. In their eyes, we are insignificant. One human child does not matter to them. She paused, letting her words sink in. So we must teach them that every human child matters. We must teach them that every human life is precious. We must teach them that humanity protects its own. The vote was unanimous. For the first time in the history of the United Terran Assembly, every single representative voted the same way. Authorization for military action against the Crythian Empire passed without a single objection. Admiral Gregory Hayes received the orders at 0700 hours. He was 60 years old, a career military man who had served in the Earth Defense Fleet for 4 decades. He had fought pirates and defended colonies from raiders, but he had never commanded the full might of humanity's military. Until now. All ships are to mobilize immediately, Hayes ordered from his flagship, the carrier Valiant. Recall every vessel. Cancel all leaves. Activate all reserves. I want the entire fleet ready for deployment in 72 hours. His second-in-command, Captain Lisa Morgan, raised an eyebrow. The entire fleet, sir? That's over 3,000 ships. Every single one, Hayes confirmed. Carriers, battleships, destroyers, cruisers, frigates, and every fighter we can launch. The Crythians think we're weak. Let's show them what humanity looks like when we stop pretending. Across human space, the call went out. Military bases that had been quiet for years roared to life. Shipyards that built trading vessels began churning out warships. Civilian transports reconfigured themselves, revealing hidden weapon systems and armor plating. The galaxy had believed humanity was peaceful because they chose to be. They were about to learn that humanity was peaceful because they could afford to be. There was a difference. On Mars, factories worked triple shifts producing ammunition and missiles. On Europa, engineers programmed combat drones by the thousands. On Titan, fighter pilots who had been running cargo runs suddenly remembered their military training. Colonel Ryan Bell commanded the Special Forces Division. He was 42 years old, tall and lean, with eyes that had seen too much combat. When the orders came through, he gathered his team. "Listen up," he said to the 200 elite soldiers assembled before him. A little girl named Emma Sullivan was shot by a Crythian warlord. She's 8 years old. She was running to get her teddy bear when they shot her. Now she's in a coma. He held up a photograph of Emma, smiling in her school picture. This is who we're fighting for. Not for territory. Not for resources, for her. For every kid like her. The Crythians think we're soft. They think we won't fight. We're going to prove them wrong. Every soldier in the room stared at Emma's picture. Then one by one they printed copies and tucked them into their gear. Emma's face would go with them into battle. On Earth, the streets filled with protesters. But they were not protesting the war. They were demanding humanity strike harder and faster. Crowds gathered outside government buildings chanting Emma's name. Candlelight vigils were held in every city. The anger was not just political. It was personal. Every parent looked at Emma and saw their own child. Every person remembered what it felt like to be 8 years old and scared. Dr. Nathan Price sent daily updates on Emma's condition. She remained stable but unconscious. Brain activity showed she could hear what was happening around her, but she could not wake. Her parents never left her bedside. Jake Sullivan had stopped crying. He sat beside his daughter's bed with cold determination on his face. "They're going to pay for this, baby girl," he whispered to her. "Every human in the galaxy is going to make sure they pay." Linda Sullivan held Emma's hand gently. "We love you so much. Please come back to us. Please wake up." But Emma slept on, unaware of the storm gathering in her name. Meanwhile, Ambassador Velkos, a neutral alien diplomat from the Zenthari species, watched the human mobilization with growing alarm. The Zenthari had been trading with humans for 10 years. They knew humans were capable warriors, but this was different. This was total war. Velkos sent urgent messages to the Crythian Empire. "You must apologize. You must offer reparations. The humans are mobilizing their entire military. This is not a minor response." The Crythian High Command dismissed his warnings. Humans are weak. They have never fought a true war. They will make noise and back down. Velkos knew better. He had studied human history. He had read about their world wars, their revolutions, their capacity for both creation and destruction. He knew what happened when humans decided something was worth fighting for. The Crythians were about to learn the same lesson. Admiral Hayes stood on the bridge of the Valiant, watching the fleet assemble. 3,000 warships gathered in formation around Earth. It was the largest military force humanity had ever deployed. Fighter craft swarmed between the larger vessels like angry insects. "All ships report ready, sir," Captain Morgan reported. Hayes nodded. "Broadcast this message on all channels. I want every human to hear it. I want every alien species to hear it. And I want the Crithians to hear it most of all. The cameras focused on him. He stood tall in his dress uniform, his jaw set. This is Admiral Gregory Hayes of the Earth Defense Fleet. To the Crithian Empire, you attacked one of our colonies. You harmed one of our children. Her name is Emma Sullivan. She is 8 years old. She is in a coma because of your actions. You thought we would do nothing. You were wrong. We are coming for you, and we will not stop until justice is served. To every human watching, we fight for Emma. We fight for every child in every colony. We fight to show the galaxy that humanity protects its own. Fleet, prepare for jump. The 3,000 ships activated their faster-than-light drives simultaneously. The light from their engines lit up the space around Earth like a new sun. Then they vanished, heading toward Crithian space. The war had begun. The human fleet arrived at the Crithian border 3 days after leaving Earth. They came out of faster-than-light travel in perfect formation. 3,000 warships arranged in a pattern that looked like a wall of steel and fire. Admiral Hayes stood on the bridge of the Valiant, watching the tactical display. The Crithian border station ahead of them was massive, designed to intimidate anyone who approached. It bristled with weapons and housed a garrison of 5,000 warriors. The Crithians had built it to be impregnable. They were about to learn they were wrong. Open a channel, Hayes ordered. All frequencies. I want them to hear this. The communications officer nodded. Channel open, sir. Hayes took a breath. Then he began to speak, his voice cold and measured. Crithian Empire, this is Admiral Gregory Hayes of the United Terran Fleet. 3 weeks ago, your forces attacked New Haven Colony. During that attack, your warlord Zrixtal deliberately shot an 8-year-old human child named Emma Sullivan. She now lies in a coma, fighting for her life. He paused, letting his words echo across space. Before we engage you in battle, we want you to see what you did. We want you to understand why we are here. The human fleet began broadcasting the footage. Every Crithian screen in the border station showed Emma running across the courtyard, showed her stumbling, showed Zrixtal raising his weapon, showed the blast hitting her small body, showed her fall. 12 seconds of footage. 12 seconds that explained everything. You harmed one of our children, Hayes continued. Now face the consequences. You have 1 hour to evacuate that station. After that, we will destroy it. The Crithian commander, a warrior named Krelax, laughed. You dare threaten us, human? We are the Crithian Empire. We have conquered 17 worlds. What are you? A handful of miners and traders. Hayes's expression did not change. 59 minutes remaining. Krelax did not evacuate. He believed the humans were bluffing. He ordered his garrison to battle stations and prepared to teach these upstart humans a lesson about Crithian superiority. It was the last mistake he ever made. When the hour expired, Hayes gave the order. All ships open fire. The human fleet unleashed hell. The Crithians had expected a cautious attack, probing strikes to test their defenses. Instead, the humans hit them with everything at once. Missiles by the thousands, energy beams that could cut through armor like paper, railgun rounds moving at fractional light speed. The border station's shields collapsed in 90 seconds. Its weapon systems were destroyed in another 40. The station itself broke, apart under the sustained bombardment, and exploded in a ball of fire that could be seen from 3 star systems away. Not a single Crithian escaped. Captain Lisa Morgan commanded the destroyer Retribution, named specifically for this mission. She was 38 years old, with short blonde hair and ice blue eyes. She had served in the fleet for 15 years and had never lost a ship. Her destroyer led a strike force of 50 ships toward a Crithian supply depot in the Vextar system. The depot supplied 12 Crithian military bases and was considered vital to their operations. Morgan stood on her bridge, looking at the picture of Emma she had taped to her command console. Every human ship had the same picture somewhere visible. Emma's smiling face had become the symbol of their war. All ships, this is Morgan. Remember why we're here. Remember who we're fighting for. Let's make this quick and clean. The strike force hit the depot from 4 directions at once. The Crithian defenders never had a chance. Within 30 minutes, the depot was burning wreckage. Morgan's ships departed without taking a single casualty. Before they left, Morgan transmitted a message to the Crithian distress frequency. This is Captain Lisa Morgan of the destroyer Retribution. We destroyed this depot in Emma Sullivan's name. Every target we hit for her. You should have thought about that before shooting a child. The message was cold, professional, and absolutely terrifying to anyone who heard it. Colonel Ryan Bell and his Special Forces team struck deeper into Krithian territory. They did not attack from space. They infiltrated Krithian worlds and hit them where they lived. Bell led a team of 20 soldiers onto the Krithian command world of Krythos. They moved like ghosts through the cities, avoiding detection. Their target was the military command center where Krithian generals planned their campaigns. The infiltration took 3 days. The assault took 3 minutes. Bell's team breached the command center at 0300 local time. They used non-lethal weapons, stunning guards and disabling security systems. They were not there to kill. They were there to deliver a message. When the Krithian generals arrived at their headquarters the next morning, they found every screen in the building showing the footage of Emma being shot. Painted on the walls in 3-meter-high letters were the words, "We remember. We are coming." Bell's team had vanished like smoke. Lieutenant Amy Chen was a fighter pilot, 27 years old, with black hair and a smile that hid a core of pure steel. She flew an interceptor called Dancing Eagle and had painted Emma's name on both sides of her ship in bright yellow letters. During the battle for the Crux system, Chen's squadron engaged Krithian fighters protecting a military convoy. The Krithians outnumbered them 2-1. But Chen did not care about numbers. "All wings, this is Chen. Remember, we fly for Emma. Let's show these bastards what happens when you hurt our kids." The dogfight lasted 40 minutes. When it was over, 23 Krithian fighters had been destroyed. Chen's squadron lost 2 ships, but both pilots ejected safely. Chen personally destroyed 7 enemy fighters. After each kill, she broadcast a simple message on emergency frequencies. "For Emma Sullivan." She became famous throughout the fleet. Other pilots started painting names on their ships, adding "For Emma" to their call signs. The little girl's name became a battle cry that echoed across the galaxy. The Krithian Empire had never faced an enemy like this. Human tactics were unpredictable and brutal. They did not fight for territory or resources. They fought with personal investment, with rage held tightly under professional discipline. Every human soldier carried Emma's picture. Every ship broadcast her name before battle. The Krithians could not understand it. Why would an entire species go to war over one child? They did not understand that for humans it was not about one child. It was about what that child represented. It was about the unspoken promise every human made to protect the innocent, to defend those who could not defend themselves. Ambassador Velkos watched the war unfold with horror. The humans were not just winning. They were dominating. In 6 weeks they had destroyed 40 Krithian military installations, crippled their supply lines, and pushed deep into their territory. The Krithians began to retreat. For the first time in their history, they were losing a war. Velkos tried again to broker peace. He contacted Admiral Hayes directly. "Admiral, please. The Krithian government wishes to negotiate. They acknowledge their mistake. They will offer reparations." Hayes listened in silence. Then he spoke, his voice hard. "Ambassador, I appreciate your efforts, but we did not start this war to take reparations. We started this war to ensure it never happens again. The Krithians need to understand that humans are not prey. We are not weak, and we will never ever forgive anyone who harms our children." "What do you want?" Velkos asked desperately. "Unconditional surrender," Hayes replied. "The warlord Zrixtal and everyone involved in the attack on New Haven will stand trial. The Krithian military will be dismantled. Their empire will be divided into demilitarized zones. They will learn to be peaceful or they will cease to exist." Velkos closed his eyes. "I will relay your terms." Back on New Haven, Jake and Linda Sullivan continued their vigil beside Emma's bed. They received daily reports about the war, about the victories won in their daughter's name. The knowledge brought them no joy, only a grim satisfaction. "Do you think she knows?" Linda asked quietly. Jake squeezed his wife's hand. "I think she can hear us. I think she knows we love her. That's what matters." Emma's heart monitor beeped steadily. Her chest rose and fell with mechanical precision. She was alive, but somewhere far away, trapped in darkness. The war continued to rage across the galaxy. The storm that had been unleashed would not stop until justice was served. 3 months after the war began, the human fleet reached the Krithian homeworld. They came in overwhelming force with 2,000 warships arranged in attack formation around the planet. The Krithian Empire, once proud and mighty, now lay broken and defeated. Admiral Hayes stood on the bridge of the Valiant, looking down at the world below. It was beautiful in its own way, with purple oceans and red continents. 8 billion Crithians lived on that planet, 8 billion lives that rested in his hands. "Sir, the Crithian government is requesting to speak with you," Captain Morgan reported. Hayes nodded. "Put them through." The hologram appeared, showing Elder Corvin, the head of the Crithian civilian government. The old alien looked exhausted, his scales dull with stress. The military government that had ruled the Crithians had collapsed 2 weeks ago. Corvin represented what was left. "Admiral Hayes," Corvin began, his voice heavy, "we surrender. Unconditionally, we accept all of your terms. Please, no more destruction. Our people have suffered enough." Hayes studied the elder carefully. "Where is Rixtel?" "In custody. We arrested him and his entire raiding party. They are yours to do with as you wish." "And the military installations?" "Already being dismantled as you demanded. Our warships are being deactivated. Our weapons being destroyed. We are doing everything you asked." Hayes was silent for a long moment. Then he spoke. "You need to understand something, Elder Corvin. We did not want this war. We are builders, explorers, and traders. We would have been content to live in peace with you. But you made a choice when you attacked New Haven. You made a choice when Zrixtal shot that little girl." Corvin bowed his head. "I know, we were arrogant. We thought you were weak. We were wrong. Yes, you were. And now your empire is broken because of it." President Carter appeared as a hologram beside Hayes. She had traveled to the fleet to be present for this moment. Her face was tired but resolute. "Elder Corvin," she said, "the terms of surrender are these. The Crithian Empire will be divided into autonomous zones under galactic oversight. Your military will be reduced to a defensive force only. Zrixtal and his raiders will stand trial for war crimes. And you will pay reparations to the families of every human who died in this war." "We agree," Corvin said immediately. "To all of it," Carter nodded. "Then the shooting stops now." Across the galaxy, human forces received the ceasefire order. The war was over. Humanity had won, but the cost had been high. 743 human soldiers had died in the fighting. Thousands more were wounded. The victory tasted of ash in many mouths. On New Haven, something else was happening. Dr. Nathan Price was checking Emma's vital signs when her fingers twitched. He froze, watching carefully. It had been 3 months since the attack. 3 months of Emma lying still and silent. Her eyes moved beneath her eyelids. Her breathing changed slightly. "Get her parents," Price said urgently to his nurse. "Now." Jake and Linda Sullivan rushed into the medical center. They had been eating dinner in the cafeteria, the first time they had left Emma's side in days. When they entered the room, they saw Dr. Price leaning over their daughter. "What's happening?" Linda asked, her voice shaking. "She's waking up," Price said softly. "After all this time, she's coming back to us." Emma's eyes opened slowly. The room was too bright. Everything hurt. She tried to speak, but her throat was dry and her voice came out as a whisper. "Mom? Dad?" Linda broke down completely, sobbing as she grabbed Emma's hand. Jake stood beside her, tears streaming down his face as he stroked his daughter's hair. "We're here, baby," he said. "We're right here. You're safe now." Emma looked confused. "What happened? Why does everything hurt?" Dr. Price stepped forward gently. "Emma, you've been asleep for a long time. 3 months. Do you remember what happened?" Emma's face scrunched up as she tried to remember. Fragments came back. The alarms. Running outside. The ships. The tall alien with the weapon. "The bad alien shot me," she said quietly. "I remember falling." Linda kissed her daughter's forehead. "You're safe now. He can't hurt you anymore." Over the next few days, Emma slowly recovered. She was weak from 3 months of inactivity. Her shoulder and chest still bore the scars from the energy weapon. But she was alive and awake, and that was all that mattered to her parents. What they did not tell her immediately was what had happened while she slept. They did not tell her about the war fought in her name. They did not tell her about the Crithian Empire's surrender, but Emma was smart. She saw the news reports playing in the hospital. She heard the nurses talking. She saw the way people looked at her with a mixture of joy and sadness. "Dad?" she asked one evening. "Why is everyone acting so strange?" Jake sat on the edge of her bed, choosing his words carefully. "Emma, when you got hurt, a lot of people got very angry. The whole human race got angry. They wanted to make sure nothing like that ever happened again. What did they do? They went to war, sweetheart. They fought the Crithians and won. The war just ended a few days ago. Emma's eyes went wide. A war because of me? Linda took her hand. Because of what happened to you, yes. But also because it could have happened to any child. People wanted to protect all children everywhere. Emma was quiet for a long time. Then she asked, "Did people die?" "In the war?" Jake nodded slowly. "Yes. 743 soldiers died fighting." Tears filled Emma's eyes. "Because of me? People died because I got shot?" "No, baby," Linda said firmly. "People died because the Crithians attacked us. Because they thought they could hurt us and we would do nothing. This is not your fault." But Emma cried anyway, mourning for people she would never meet who had died fighting for her. The trial of Zrixtal began 2 weeks later on a neutral space station. It was broadcast across the galaxy. Every species watched as the Crithian warlord was brought before a galactic court. Emma testified via hologram from her hospital bed on New Haven. She wore a simple blue dress, her arm in a sling, her face pale but determined. The prosecutor asked her to describe what happened. Emma spoke quietly but clearly. "I was running to get my teddy bear from my locker. I heard the alarms, but I thought I had time. Then I saw the ships. I saw the alien soldiers. I tried to run back inside, but I fell. That's when he shot me. I remember seeing him raise his weapon. I remember thinking he looked angry. Then everything went black." Zrixtal sat in the defendant's chair, shackled and silent. He showed no remorse, no emotion at all. To him, Emma was still just a casualty of war. Insignificant. The jury, composed of representatives from 7 different species, deliberated for only 2 hours. They found Zrixtal guilty of war crimes, attacking a civilian population, and attempted murder of a child. The sentence was death. President Carter had to make the final decision on whether to approve the execution. She sat in her office looking at reports and legal documents. Part of her wanted Zrixtal to die. Part of her wanted him to suffer for what he did to Emma, to all the families who lost loved ones in the war. But she was not a dictator. She was a leader who had to think about what message humanity would send. She approved the execution. Zrixtal was executed by firing squad 3 days later. He died unrepentant and unmourned. His raiding party followed him to their deaths one by one over the next month. Emma watched none of it. She asked her parents not to tell her when it happened. She did not want to know. Instead, she focused on her recovery. Physical therapy helped her learn to walk properly again. The burns on her chest and shoulder healed, leaving scars she would carry forever. The nightmares came every few nights, visions of the warlord's weapon raising to fire at her. But she was alive. She was healing. And slowly, very slowly, she began to smile again. Colonel Bell visited her one afternoon. He stood awkwardly in the doorway of her hospital room. A battle-hardened soldier suddenly unsure how to talk to a 9-year-old girl. "Hi," he said. "I'm Ryan. I wanted to meet you." Emma looked at him curiously. "Did you fight in the war?" "Yes, my team and I went to the Crithian planets and made sure they knew we were serious about protecting our people." "Were you scared?" Bell thought about lying, then decided Emma deserved honesty. "Sometimes. But I carried your picture with me. It reminded me why we were fighting." Emma's eyes filled with tears. "I'm sorry people had to fight because of me." Bell knelt beside her bed. "Listen to me, Emma. We did not fight because of you. We fought for you. There's a difference. We fought so that no other kid would get hurt like you did. We fought to make the galaxy safer. You gave us a reason to be brave." He showed her his gear still packed for return to Earth. There, tucked into a pocket, was Emma's school picture. "I'm taking this home with me," he said, "to remember why some things are worth fighting for." Emma smiled through her tears. 1 year after the attack, New Haven looked completely different. The colony had been rebuilt, stronger and better defended than before. New buildings stood where the old ones had been destroyed. A defensive shield now protected the entire settlement. Commander Brooks had tripled the size of the security force, but the biggest change was not physical. It was in the people themselves. They walked with their heads higher. They knew that humanity would never again allow one of their colonies to stand alone and vulnerable. Emma Sullivan was 9 years old now. She walked with a slight limp, a permanent reminder of the energy blast that had nearly killed her. The scars on her chest and shoulder had faded to pale silver lines. The nightmares came less frequently, though they still visited sometimes. She attended school like any other child. She played with her friends, did her homework, and complained about vegetables at dinner. But there was a sadness in her eyes that had not been there before. An understanding of the galaxy's cruelty that no 9-year-old should possess. Jake Sullivan had returned to his work at the mines, but he came home every day for lunch now. He never took his family for granted anymore. Linda continued maintaining the environmental systems, but she had installed extra safety protocols throughout the colony. They both watched over Emma with fierce protectiveness. The memorial garden had been Emma's idea. She had asked her parents if they could plant a tree for every human soldier who died in the war. 743 trees now stood in a peaceful grove at the edge of the colony, each one bearing a plaque with a name. Emma visited the garden every week. She could not physically plant all the trees herself, but she helped with every single one. It took months. Her hands blistered from digging. Her back ached from carrying water, but she never complained. "They died because of what happened to me," she told her mother. "The least I can do is remember them." Linda did not correct her anymore. She understood that Emma needed to do this, needed to honor the sacrifice in her own way. The galaxy had changed in profound ways. The Crithian Empire was no more. It had been divided into 7 autonomous regions, each governed by civilian councils under the supervision of a galactic peacekeeping force. Their military had been reduced to small defensive units. They would never threaten anyone again. Other alien species that had once viewed humans as minor players now treated them with respect, bordering on fear. The humans who smiled and traded with you were the same humans who had shattered an empire in 3 months. That knowledge made everyone cautious. President Carter addressed the Galactic Council for the first time that year. She stood at the podium in the Great Chamber where representatives from 43 species gathered to discuss matters of peace and war. "I come before you not in conquest, but in partnership," Carter began. "Humanity did not want war. We prefer building to destroying, but we have learned that peace requires strength. We have learned that protecting the innocent requires the willingness to fight." She paused, looking around the chamber. "We fought the Crithians because they harmed a child and showed no remorse. We will fight anyone who threatens our people or the innocent of any species, but we also offer our hand in friendship to those who seek peace. Choose wisely which hand you wish to grasp." The council voted to offer humanity a permanent seat at the leadership table. President Carter accepted on behalf of Earth and all human colonies. Ambassador Velkos watched the vote with satisfaction. He had warned the Crithians. He had tried to prevent the war. Now he worked to ensure such a conflict never happened again. "You have changed the galaxy," he told Carter after the meeting. "For better or worse, nothing will be the same." Carter nodded. "I hope it's for the better. I hope other children can grow up safer because of what happened to Emma." "The Emma Doctrine," Velkos said. "That is what they are calling it. The principle that any harm to human civilians will be met with overwhelming force." "Good," Carter replied. "Let them remember. Let them tell their children. Let everyone know that humanity protects its own." Admiral Hayes retired 6 months after the war ended. He was tired and ready to step away from command. At his retirement ceremony, he spoke about Emma and the soldiers who fought for her. "We did not fight for glory or conquest," Hayes said. "We fought because a little girl was harmed and we could not let it stand. Every person who served in that fleet, every pilot who flew into combat, every soldier who risked their life, they all fought for the same reason: to protect the innocent, to show the galaxy that humans care for our children more than anything else." He looked out at the assembled officers and crew. "Never forget Emma Sullivan. Never forget why we fought. And never forget that our greatest strength is not our weapons or our ships. It is our capacity to love and protect those who cannot protect themselves." Captain Morgan took command of the Valiant after Hayes retired. She continued to keep Emma's picture on her command console, a reminder of what mattered most. Lieutenant Chen, now promoted to squadron leader, named her new ship Emma's Promise. She taught young pilots about the war, about why they fought and what they protected. Colonel Bell returned to Earth but stayed in touch with Emma. He sent her messages every few months, telling her about his life and asking about hers. She wrote back, telling him about school and her friends and the memorial garden. On Emma's 9th birthday, something special happened. Representatives from 7 different alien species arrived at New Haven. They came bearing gifts and messages of peace. They had created a fund in Emma's name, a scholarship for children across the galaxy who wanted to study peace and diplomacy. They called it the Emma Sullivan Peace Initiative. Emma stood in the colony's main hall, surrounded by aliens of different shapes and sizes, all of them bowing to a 9-year-old human girl. "We were inspired by your survival," one of them said, "by your forgiveness, by your desire to honor those who fought for you. You have shown us that children are precious regardless of species." Emma did not know what to say. She looked at her parents, who nodded encouragingly. "Thank you," she said quietly. "I just hope no one else gets hurt like I did. I hope all children can be safe." The ceremony was broadcast across the galaxy. People watched a small girl with a limp and scars on her skin speak about peace and safety. They watched her plant another tree in the memorial garden, this one for all the Crithian civilians who had died in the war. "They did not attack me," Emma explained when asked why she would honor the enemy. "The soldiers attacked me. The regular people just lived there. They lost their homes and families too. Everyone deserves to be remembered." Her compassion shook many who watched. Here was a child who had every reason to hate, choosing instead to remember all victims with equal dignity. Admiral Hayes, watching from his retirement home on Earth, felt tears in his eyes. "That's why we fought," he said to his wife. "For children like her, for the goodness that can survive even after being harmed." 3 years later, Emma Sullivan spoke at the dedication of a new school on Mars. It was named Sullivan Academy and specialized in interspecies relations and peace studies. She was 12 years old now, taller and stronger, though the limp remained. "I do not remember much about the day I was shot," Emma told the crowd. "I remember being scared. I remember pain. But what I remember most from that time is love. My parents' love. The doctors who saved me. The soldiers who fought to make sure it never happened again. The strangers who sent messages of hope." She paused, gathering her courage. "I have scars from what happened. I always will. But scars are proof that we survived. They show we can heal. The galaxy has scars now too from the war. But I believe we can all heal together. I believe we can build something better." The crowd stood and applauded. Jake and Linda Sullivan watched their daughter with pride mixed with sadness. She had grown up too fast, seen too much, but she had also become someone remarkable, someone who chose peace over vengeance, understanding over hatred. That night, Emma stood in her room on Mars, looking out at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Crithian people were rebuilding their civilization. Somewhere out there, human colonies expanded into new frontiers. Somewhere out there, the galaxy continued spinning, changed forever by what happened to one small girl. She thought about the soldiers who died for her. She thought about Colonel Bell and Captain Morgan and Admiral Hayes. She thought about all the people who cared enough to fight, and she made a promise to herself. She would live a life worthy of their sacrifice. She would work for peace. She would protect others when she could. She would make sure that her name, which had become a battle cry, could also become a symbol of hope. In the memorial garden back on New Haven, 743 trees grew tall and strong. Their leaves rustled in the alien wind, a living reminder of the price of fury and the power of love. The galaxy had learned its lesson. Humanity was peaceful because they chose to be, not because they had to be. And the greatest lesson of all, never ever harm a human child. Because humanity would move heaven and earth, cross any distance, pay any price to protect their own. Emma Sullivan was 9 years old when she was shot. She was 12 when she became a voice for peace. She would spend the rest of her life building bridges between species, teaching others about understanding and forgiveness.